Welcome back to the Level Up and Live podcast, where we don't just talk about success, we actually live it out through purpose-driven leadership, community, and grit. Today's guest is Kristi Thornton, CEO of KOO Recruit, national speaker, and founder of 26 for Caleb. From the corporate recruiting world to launching her own firm in 2022, Kristi leads with heart, hustle, and a mission that goes far beyond filling roles. She's not just managing a business, she's building people, movements, and momentum. Without further ado, Kristi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean.
Well, you know how we roll. Hit us with that 1 minute intro.
Yep. So I'm Kristi Thornton, like Sean said. I'm the founder of KOO Recruit. My passion has and always will be people. It's one of the reasons why I started KOO Recruit. I've always wanted to be a person that's all about relationships. I'm really digging deep into finding out someone's why they want to work there, what their passion is, and lining that up with their career. I'm a public speaker outside of KOO Recruit. I go around high schools and speak against the dangers of driving under the influence or distracted driving. I do that to honor my brother who passed away in 2018. And I'm excited to be here. Outside of that, you can catch me hiking, fishing, pretty much anything outdoors, or being with my friends and family. So thanks for having me,
Awesome.
Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing. So let's take it back. In 2022, I want to ask you, because I'm curious, and our listeners are as well,
Sure.
And all of our members, what made 2022 the right time to finally bet on yourself and start KOO Recruit? And what fears did you have to overcome when you started the company?
Sure. So in 2022, I think last time you and I spoke, I'd actually gotten fired. So that was fun. I got fired in August 2022, honestly out of left field, but I will say it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yes.
Probably not how it went down, but that's okay. But the next day I went out and bought a laptop, and I just decided, and it had been, entrepreneurship has always kind of weighed on my heart.
Yeah.
But I knew the second that happened that the next day I was going to start my business. And that's really what happened. And I launched it and haven't looked back since.
In that moment, because I resonate so much with that, in losing your job and getting terminated, because not sure if you know my story or not, but for our listeners and our new viewers as well, when I graduated college from Stephen F. Austin State University, I had started working in enterprise rent-a-car, worked my way up for 3 years, was on the highest, pedestal and company car, and thought I was, high horse there.
Yep.
And so within 3 years, I ended up getting terminated, and then I got punched in the mouth and got sat down. Well, I went 6 months and I was frustrated, and I got headhunted by a State Farm agent. He ended up recruiting me. So I went and worked for him for another 3 years, got terminated again. So I resonate with what you're saying. I got terminated twice. So in my experience, what it does to you, it lights a fire. And for me, it was in that moment where I was like, I'm not meant to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I had to overcome that. I had to overcome that mentality of, hey, I can do this. Self-doubt, fear never really crept in. I don't know. And I'm curious with you.
Sure.
For me, my back was up against the wall. Like I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Obviously I had gotten terminated. And so all eyes were on me. So I had to figure out the trials and the tribulations, the mistakes, the errors, and do all the things that I needed to do to get to where I wanted to go. And it was messy. It was ugly. And I'm sure you can resonate with that as well. Did you have any feelings in that moment where you're like, hey, I went and purchased a laptop? Was there fear? Was there doubt? Was there any kind of, is people going to judge me? What are people going to think of me? Or did you say, nope, my back's up against the wall and I'm going to hit the ground running?
So I kind of had a mix of both. For me, when I was fired, it was just that shock moment. I was a high performer. I had been in the business for several years. We were very successful during the COVID realm. And but I think after being fired, I had a mix of both feelings. I had this kind of awakening, if you will. And I was super motivated to start my own business. The very first day though, I actually went through and I knew that I didn't want to go into entrepreneurship with past hurts. I felt like if I went into business with hurt, then my business probably wouldn't be successful the first year. So although I still decided to start, I knew I had to do a lot of other things on the back end. And earlier on, I actually grabbed this out of my journal. Earlier on in May, when COVID started to die down, I was mentally already struggling, which is weird because I was very successful. But I wrote down what I was struggling with, self-worth, my weight and self-image, fear of failure at the time because the COVID was dying down and so was the business, lack of motivation. But then I wrote down a little bit further. I put, I want to be successful. What is that? And am I willing? So I knew that if I was going to do this, I needed to go through and really do a lot of self-discovery. I wrote down everything that was hurting me, things that I needed to work on with forgiveness. I wrote it all down. I sat outside. I started a fire pit. I processed, I grieved, and I threw it all in the fire, prayed, and moved on. And then, outside of that, I knew that physical health, I've told you this before, I'm a firm believer that how you are physically is probably a clear direction of how your business is going to perform. So I did 75 hard right off the bat, which was awesome. It was mentally challenging. But those were kind of the things that I dealt with when I first started the business. And I'm a lot better now than where I was.
So would you say that was the first 6 months with starting the business, or that first year?
Yeah, I'd say the first 6 months. And then after that, I really haven't had much self-doubt. I'm in it all the way and I'm excited and we're making positive changes and we're moving in the right direction. So I'm hoping never to return to corporate America.
Yeah, that's so fascinating to me and so insightful with somebody, because what I'm hearing you say is that you looked inward and you started writing in your journal, you started writing how you're feeling, and not a lot of people understand that. Is that a skill did you hear that from a mentor? Did you learn that from somebody that was a role model of yours, or have you always gratitude? Have you always journaled?
I feel like I've always been in tune with my feelings, but I feel like over time, it's just something that's naturally helped me. It wasn't from a mentor, potentially, I guess, therapy. I was in therapy in my early 20s, where a lot of journaling kind of takes place, but it's something that I've actually incorporated in my business now, where I write, and this just from our Level Up and Live mastermind group, but I write everything down. I like to reflect, process, and make changes from there.
That's such an inspiration to me because I struggled with that, Kristi, and I still do to this day on journaling. And the biggest reason, it's the dumbest reason, because I don't like my handwriting.
Let me tell you something. I got like chicken scratch. Okay. Sometimes I can't even read what I wrote. I'm like, okay, I need to slow down, take my time.
That same as
so
me.
I get that.
And so, yeah. So, a mentor once told me, or I think it was somebody in the mastermind group, they're like, well, that should be an indicator, Sean, to actually slow down and be intentional about that. And it was kind of that aha moment.
Yeah, sure.
Because a lot of times we make these stories up in our head. Well, I don't journal because
right. Let me find an excuse.
Yeah, that's a horrible excuse. But we both know what it's done in our lives. And for me, my gratitude journal and writing down something I just started writing down. And for our viewers and audience and listeners, man, I highly recommend this. It's really helped me out reflect. I used to reflect once a week, Kristi.
Mm-hmm.
Now I reflect in my gratitude journal or my journal once a day.
I love that.
And I do this around 5 to 10 minutes around 3 p.m. in the afternoon time. And I do 3 things. It's a 3-step method. So the first one is, what are my top 3 wins for the day? This allows me to look at my wins. The second one is, what are my top 3 adjustments that I need to make?
Sure.
That basically, what do I need to adjust? And then the third one is the alignment. On a scale of 1 to 10, where am I aligned? So a 10, I'm always striving to be that 10.0 version of myself. So I'll never be at a 10, obviously,
sure.
right? 'Cause that's God. But if I can live a life designed that I don't grow to hate, and I'm at a 7, 8, 9 in all areas of life by reflecting on that on a daily basis,
sure,
man, to me, it's that self-awareness. And so one day it's an 8 in business and then 3 in relationships.
Right.
And so by reflecting on this, I've noticed that the numbers have improved just by simply reflecting on that. So 10 to 15 minutes a day.
No, I like that. I'm gonna have to adopt that mindset and that activity in my day to day. So
exactly. What would you share with our audience and listeners? Somebody that's listening to this, are like, okay, Sean and Kristi, you guys are high performers, you're entrepreneurs, business owners. And we hear what you're saying. What would be that one tip or one piece of advice that you would give to them for somebody that doesn't like journaling or doesn't like writing down in their journal? They don't see the benefits of it.
Well, I think you got to find out why you don't see the benefit of it. If you haven't tried it, then how do you not see the benefit? For me, even recently, this is just it's kind of interesting that we're talking about this. I told you a couple weeks or last week when we tried recording this originally, that a friend of mine was going through something really, really heavy. And I started writing down my prayers. And it was really powerful when I got to see God's work. Every single day he was doing something. And so if I have that in my prayer life, imagine what it can do in your business life. So you're writing down, hey, this is what I'm grateful for. These are my 3 wins. This is what happened today. And let me tell you something. Fast forward to 6 months, a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, you're going to look back and someone's going to say, how did you do it? Or what was something that you struggled with? Or what were some of your wins early on? And you're going to be able to say, you know what? Let me show you what my first year was like. And maybe you don't think it's powerful now, but I'm telling you, even these past few weeks in my prayer life, the most powerful 2 weeks ever. And again, apply that to business, being able to reflect and share your testimony, share your story. You're going to help other entrepreneurs or maybe even someone who wants to be in leadership just by you doing that.
And it also helps to extract it from what's going on up here, and we get outside of our mind and our ideas and our thoughts and our feelings and getting out on paper.
Right.
And for me, it's almost a framework and a structure because if you're writing down your prayers and you're writing down what's important to you and reflecting on your day and in business and all these different areas of life and how you're feeling, then you're being what I'm hearing you say is you're also being intentional about it.
Right.
And so a lot of times it's in that magical moment when you write this down, and it's almost like the Holy Spirit, there's almost this uplifting thing that happens when you feel that.
High.
Yeah, spiritual high.
Yeah, that's right.
For our listeners and audience, man, we just challenge you, we empower you. It's a huge tool. It's a huge resource, and we just highly recommend it. So
my tip would be just try it for 30 days, just to start.
Yes.
Just try it for 30 days and watch how your work changes, watch how your mindset changes, and watch how the Lord will work in your business and in your personal life. Just game changer. Just trust me on this, guys.
I agree with you 1000%. Me and you were talking behind the scenes, and one of the things that you had mentioned that we both love, which is leadership. And I think that's one of our key topics that we like to talk about in our business and entrepreneur journey, and even the Level Up Live Mastermind group is leadership versus management. And so you've obviously led teams, you've built a company, you're building a company, and you've also empowered individuals and continue to do that in these high pressure industries. So in your eyes, what's the real difference between a manager and a leader?
No, that's a really good question. When I think of a manager, I think very surface level. I think someone who can manage a process, manage a project. They can tell you, hey, you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong. It's a little bit more black and white. When I think of a leader, I think of someone who, hey, let me find out who you are as a person. Let me find out what drives you, what motivates you, what's your why, and how can I help you get there? It's a lot deeper of an understanding of a person than this surface level management. With my first W-2, shout out to Troy. When I hired him, that's the very first thing I asked him. Hey, tell me who you are and tell me what your why is. Well, what do you mean? What's my why? And I was like, what matters to you most in life? What is your why? What drives you? Is it your family? Is it money? What is something that you want for your 2 kids? What is something that you want for your wife? When it comes to leadership, what's important to you? How do you like to be led? That's another big one. And then I find out his goals, what's your personal and professional goals? And what does that mean to you? If you're a manager, like I said, you're just managing, you're the bare minimum. But leadership, that's that next level it's really going to make a difference in your business. And most people leave jobs because they lack a leader. So that's why you got to do a lot of internal. That's why I had to do the hard work up front. Otherwise, I was never going to be a leader at this company ever.
if you're listening to this right now, you need to rewind that for 25 seconds because that was just a gold mine of valuable information that Kristi just shared. And I couldn't agree with her more. And so a couple things taking away. When you said the quote, if people are leaving the company, it's not because they don't like the job or the responsibilities or the duties. Guess who they're leaving?
The leader.
The leader. And that was a big pill to swallow. I was the leader that people were leaving because I was the manager, Kristi. Just shortly 3 years ago, 8 years in business, I was the manager.
Right.
And I was the one dictating. I was the one barking orders. And I was wondering why I was so unfulfilled and lacked purpose and lacked vitality. And because it was all about me.
Sure.
What you just said and what I'm hearing is that is servant leadership. Everything you said about Troy, you're making it about him, not about Kristi. You focus on him, help him ask the good questions and the good quality questions and help him get to his goals and be that supporter. Then guess what the byproduct of that is? You getting to where you want to go.
Right.
And your company wants to go. Right. And you're aligned together. And to me, that is what we're all about in leveling up and living our best life as leaders.
That's right.
And so you embody that. And it's such an inspiration seeing you do that because it's very rare. It's very rare into this day and age there's a lot of managers out there and we're against that. So now we're creating purpose-driven leadership. So that's exciting. My next question is I want you to take us to a moment where you felt like things were falling apart, maybe in business, or maybe in life. And I'm curious what lessons did you walk away with that made you stronger when these things in these moments were happening in your business or in your life?
Sure. So one of the biggest pivotal moments of my life was back in 2018. 2017, let me just back up here. So 2017, I was living in Kingwood at the time. We had Hurricane Harvey hit, just completely destroyed my hometown. And then a few short months later, I lost my brother in an accident. And I just had, all of this going on while training for the Chevron Houston Marathon. And it was just a lot. But I knew deep down that something had to change. I wasn't running from my grief at all. I just knew that I needed to find peace again. I needed to kind of do a regroup. And I ended up moving to the Woodlands. Ended up leaving a company that I was with for 8 years. I really knew I knew that I wanted to grow in a different way in my life. Fast forward, it was the best thing I've ever done. And I'm a firm believer that the best way to heal is to help, which is why I got into public speaking.
Yes.
My high school principal would ask me, hey, do you want to come speak to our students before prom and graduation? And I said, yes, absolutely. And I got to share what happened with my brother. And if I could just change one person's mind, then I feel like I've done my purpose. And in business, again, that one pivotal moment was when I got fired. I loved, in the beginning, I loved who my leader was. And then things changed. I changed, he changed. And that really kind of tailored into how I wanted to be as a leader. Not everything was bad. I actually learned a lot.
What would you say that one lesson is that you walked away with in those tough times for you that made you stronger? One lesson that you could give our listeners and audience, because we all go through tough times and challenging times and things happen to us. And so it's in those moments how we react and how we show up and then reflecting back, which you do such a good job at. What lesson do you think that you pulled away or walked away from and that made you stronger as a human being and as a leader as well?
Sure. So this is going to sound odd, but in the first 2 minutes after my brother passed, I literally had a conversation with God and I said, okay, God, I'm either going to hate you or I'm going to cling. And I chose cling. And that same concept applies in my professional life. Putting God first in my business has been a game changer for me. I don't really have anything else to explain it. But that's the lesson I learned is when you go through hard times and trials. I heard this quote this morning and it says it's perfect. God doesn't waste a wound.
Yes.
And that wound of losing my brother wasn't wasted.
That's right.
My relationships are stronger. I think the reason why I care more about my employees is probably because of that.
Yeah.
The reason why I care so much in my friendships, everything. It changed my life. And even, I told you earlier on that, I had a friend of mine had a really tough 2 weeks, and a lot of the feelings I felt were grief, and it reminded me of when I lost my brother. But again, it's just showing up when it matters, and it's showing up when it's hard. And if you do that for your employees, if you show up when it's hard, Troy showed up for me these past 2 weeks when I was going through it with my friend. Wow. He showed up in the business, and I didn't even have to ask him to do that.
Wow.
He just took it to that next level because he cares.
That's right. And because you care as a leader, authentically and genuinely. That's the only way. See, if you're the manager in that situation, he ends up maybe putting in his 2 weeks or ends up not as caring as much.
Right.
But because you're the servant leader and you believe in that higher power, that supernatural force, because we all know if we try to do it on our own, then it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And so who do we lean on when times get tough? And man, I think you hit the nail right on the head. And for our listeners and audience listening to this is, I don't know what your religion is, and I don't know what your beliefs are, but we have got to get outside of ourselves and be able to lean on, to me, a higher power. And so what does that look like? And what does that feel like? Because it's not but when times get tough, you've got to be able to, plug yourself into that so you don't isolate yourself.
Right.
And we're all against isolation because I think a lot of times, Kristi, high performers like us, business owners, what do? When the times get tough, we isolate. We don't want to surround ourselves with anybody. We want to, the devil comes in, the enemy comes in going, nope, you don't need to do a podcast. You don't need to, go to the mastermind group. You don't need to plug yourself into church.
Yeah.
Just stay home,
Stay home, be lonely.
Be lonely. Don't journal, don't gratitude.
Right.
And that was me for so many years, man. I'm like, and to me, that's the rat race. That's the cog in the wheel. And we're wondering why nothing's changing in our lives.
My previous boss used to always say, it's lonely at the top. Leadership is lonely at the top. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be.
It
does not have to be. That is a choice.
Yes. So I want to stay on, you founded 26 for Caleb, and we brought this up. I want to explore, and for our listeners and audience as well, and stay on this, is what does that mission mean to you? You've mentioned mission a couple times now for 26 for Caleb. What does that mission mean to you, and how has it shaped the way you lead and serve?
So 26 for Caleb started because the year that I was supposed to run the marathon was just a couple weeks after he passed in 2018. And it started out with just, hey, instead of me running 26 miles, why not do an act of kindness? I just challenged 26 random people. Hey, can 26 people do an act of kindness? And that number blew up. That was way past 26. And it was beautiful.
Wow.
But how it shaped me as a leader is it just, again, it goes back to the level of care. I have a lot more empathy now. I look at relationships differently now. A lot of the times I would be very kind of, not, I guess, surface level. I would be afraid to be vulnerable. I would kind of have that lack of courage. And when you go through hard things, you realize the importance of people. You realize the importance of relationships. You realize the importance of, again, showing up when it's hard. I love big. I do. And the people in my life, I would literally do anything in this world for. But it's because of 26 for Caleb. It's because of acts of kindness that people have shown up in my life. And I always just try to give that back. Serving in the community, volunteering, investing my time, Level Up and Live mastermind group, like that supportive function. That's what it's all about. Really. People matter. That's it.
Agreed. Do you think that we have to go through the pain cave and go through these painful moments in our life where we're like, enough's enough. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't like the way I'm showing up, and I need to plug myself into a mastermind group. I need to plug myself and hire a coach. I need to plug myself in a church. Do you think it's avoidable to go through that pain, or do you think we all have to go through that pain?
I can only speak to myself, but I think it's unavoidable. I think you have to go through it.
Agreed.
I think that's where you learn the most.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of, you have to let your wall down. You have to let your pride down and say,
Yes.
you know what? I need support here,
Yeah.
which is why I joined Level Up and Live. And no offense, I was skeptical. I've told you this. I was skeptical. I was like, oh my gosh, here's another, I didn't want to be a part of a networking group that
Right. Yep.
I just didn't feel connected in all the other ones. I kind of felt like an outcast in it.
Yes.
But when I got to the Level Up and Live mastermind group, I was like, this is something I could invest in. This is it.
What was that moment? So now that you brought that up, what was that moment where you're like, this is something I can invest in? What was that moment for you?
When it started to reflect in my business, what I was learning on Fridays. And again, we talked about this last week, but I probably would have delayed hiring Troy due to my own fears. But I was empowered by you, Cody, Micah.
Yep.
And here I am. I have a W-2 employee who's starting in less than a month. But it's those conversations, that inspiration, that motivation that drove me. And if you're already changing my business in 4 weeks, John, then imagine what the next year is going to hold when I stick to it, not if.
That's right. No, you hit the nail right on the head. And I had to learn that the hard way because I tried to do everything in isolation. And that is what I have found is where we start struggling as leaders and business owners and high performers is we hit what's called this leadership lid. And so you got to where you were before coming and joining the Level Up and Live Mastermind group. And it was the law of the leadership lid, right? You end up hitting self-doubt. And do I want to hire my first employee? Well, it's a lid in that regards to a certain degree. Then you plug yourself in with other like-minded individuals that have been where you want to go that have employees.
Right.
So that by empowering and challenging you and giving you the skill sets, it suppresses that time spent from you having to learn and become that leader in a short period of time. In this case, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Most people, they'll spend years and they'll never hire their first employee. They'll never start their business. They'll never go run the 5K. They'll never go run the marathon. They'll never go start the podcast. And the number one regret on people's deathbed is the regret of not doing, not taking the leap of faith to go through these things, getting comfortable, uncomfortable.
Right.
And so you hit the nail right on the head. Speaking of hiring your first employee, for our business owners and high performers and leaders, walk us through that moment. What was exciting? What was hard? And what advice do you have for the business owner about to make their first hire?
Sure. So what was it like? It was, I had to get past the self-doubt. Okay. I'm going to let my pride down here. I was terrified. It's a lot of money to take a risk, right? But one of the things I did up front is, again, Troy's been a contractor of mine for over a year. He's actually a teacher full-time. He works after hours and on weekends. And he has just shown up. So I knew pretty early on that he was going to be my first W-2. The scary part was just letting go of my own problems and letting go of my self-doubt, getting connected to the mastermind group and having other entrepreneurs who have already been through it motivate me to take that next step. So I did that. What was it like delivering an offer letter to Troy? That was hands down one of the best moments in business. He was shocked. I was like, no, come on, have a better reaction. But no, it was a really special moment. So he starts June 5th. And then my advice, honestly, just get past, if the only thing holding you back is fear, that's not a good enough excuse. And I had to learn that. I've been holding on to that excuse since the last time I was on your podcast. So it's been a little while, but I'm excited. I'm really excited for the rest of 2025 and to see the business grow. So,
Yeah, we're excited to be on this journey with you as well, because I'm a big believer in, now you've created a system and process, you know what that feels like, you know what that looks like. And
yep.
so it's duplicatable. And so people listening to this and business owners listening to this, what is holding you back? Is it fear? Is it self-doubt? Is it a fear of it not working out? I know all these thoughts come in our minds and our feelings and our emotions, and then we end up getting paralyzed, and then we pick our head up in 6 months, 12 months, and we're doing all the work, and we haven't created little mini soldiers. And so we end up being the bottleneck in our business, which leads to burnout, frustration,
Yep.
and overwhelm.
Yep.
And we isolate ourselves. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 plus years now, Kristi, and I see it time and time again. I've coached over 40 plus business owners and entrepreneurs, and it's the same story. And I know it's not if, but when. I talk to teens and 20-year-olds all the time, and they're head down in the trenches,
Yep.
sleeves rolled up. They're making things happen. And in the past, I would have been like trying to influence them to go, hey, pick your head up for 2 seconds.
Right.
And start asking yourself the questions and what obstacles and challenges you're going to be facing. It's what I have found is they don't listen until they go through that pain cave.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what? Enough's enough.
Right.
I cannot do it on my own. And that was me 3 years ago. I can't do it on my own. I need help. Nobody can help me.
Yep. That's how I felt.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people listening to this can resonate, and that can be just any area of life. That can be marriage, Kristi. That can be health and fitness. Here recently, I reached out to an individual. He's out. Shout out to Michael. He's a mastermind member as well. And he's doing really well in business and got a great home life and his health and fitness. That was one of the things he wanted to really level up in.
Yep.
And so I wanted to be intentional about inviting him to come and work out with me, because sometimes we need that accountability because we don't have that guidance or that support if we lack thereof in a different area of life. And so we had our first, he said, you know what? Thanks for holding me accountable. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks for caring.
Yep,
right? Servant
love that.
leadership's not about me. And he met me at the gym this morning at 5 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
And had a good workout at 6:15 a.m. And so he texted me afterwards. We both took a couple pictures. The weird thing is I was sweating this entire time. I had this all like, but he wasn't sweating. I'm like, Michael, we got to explore that. There's something wrong with you not sweating.
It was hard, Sean. Maybe he was just dehydrated.
I think there was some dehydration going on. So I told him, I was like, man, make sure you hydrate today. Make sure you take a lot of electrolytes.
You know what, though? I love that you cared, because I heard him mention that in the mastermind group. Yeah. I love that you cared enough to hold him accountable and to remind him of his why.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and because I think that's our job, right? If you spend all your time, energy, and effort helping others get to where they want to go and aligning with the mission and vision and what that looks like, it's like you said early in the podcast episode, what is the byproduct of that? It helps you. It helps your mission in your life and your personal goals, because it's who you're becoming in that journey of leveling up to live your best life.
Right.
See, when we try to do it all on our own, like we've all been there, and you listening to this as well, we hit that lid and we become that liability and that bottleneck in the business, in our life. And so it's in those moments where we have to reach out for help, be vulnerable, drop the pride and ego, because that's the fastest way to get to where you want to go.
Right.
So you talked about public speaking, and I love that. You're such a good, excellent communicator, great speaker, and just the way you present yourself, it really is an inspiration to me, because that's something that I'm trying to improve on as well. Communication, influence, and there's a lot to it, right? And so you've stepped on stages as a national speaker. How did you grow into that version of yourself? And what would you say to the leader listening to this who's still afraid to use their voice?
So I think for me, it started off with someone just asking me to do that and having the courage to do it. The thing is I talk about a topic that it's life-changing. I'm not talking about leadership or business. I'm talking about the loss of my brother and how if I could just help one person, then I've done my job. And I'm speaking to high school students, anywhere from 13 30 kids all the way up to 1,000 kids.
Yeah.
But it was because someone invited me in the room. And if someone invites you into a room, it's because they think you have value.
Yes.
And I would just encourage you that if you get an opportunity to get outside of your comfort zone, then to take the chance.
Yes.
I never would have imagined that in 2025 that I would still be doing this every single year. But it's become where my heart is, talking to these kids. And it has led me to other opportunities. And that's what you kind of have to think of too, is
That's right.
what started out as 26 for Caleb. Your wife, Kendra, invited me to come speak to her students about how to write a resume, how to interview well, what jobs are out there. And so you just never know when you get invited into a room, it could start out as something small, but it leads to something better than you imagined. So get comfortable being uncomfortable and take the risk is my advice.
And I'm also hearing you say is that this was aligned when you got the opportunity to present itself. You didn't just say and go talk about golf or singing or technology.
Right.
You took the opportunity because it was aligned with your mission and purpose and vision and what allowed you to come alive.
Yeah.
See, I think that's where a lot of times business owners and our listeners, where they say yes to everything, but they're saying yes. So they're saying no to the thing over here that they should be saying yes to. And it's not aligned with the thing that they actually want to do. And that allows them to come alive. You come alive when you speak about 26 to Caleb. You come alive when you empower women. You come alive with these things. So why wouldn't you say yes to more of those opportunities? Because that's how you show up naturally to yourself.
It's that cap that you talked about earlier, right? Yeah. It's that fear cap, really.
Exactly.
But once you get past it, who knows what could happen?
Well, that's where you start tapping into that untapped potential.
Right.
Because then you're living your authentic life.
Right.
When I see you every single Friday around all these mastermind members, they lean in. When Kristi starts talking, just like you were a table leader last week, they're leaning in when you're talking. You're facilitating, you're being a table leader, and you're asking them questions. That to me right there is aligned with who Kristi is wanting to become in that leadership. And so to me, that only helps the byproduct of that, your employees, your team, your family, your friends, because it's in those moments where you're staring it down and leveling up as a leader and figuring out what's working and what's not working. And I think it's just such a beautiful environment to plug yourself into.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll wrap things up. I can't
Sure.
believe we're already 35, 40 minutes in this bad boy, but I got to make sure I get these questions.
Yep, go for it.
Our members want to make sure that they hear their questions.
Yep.
So our final question before we get to the member question, I want to speak real quick on legacy. So when I say legacy, I mean, when it's all said and done, what do you want people to say about Kristi Thornton? Not just the CEO of KOO Recruit, a woman, a leader, and a light, but what do you want people to actually say about you when it's all said and done?
Wow, that's such a powerful question. I think for me, I want to have an impact. I want to mean something to somebody, whether it's for, a temporary moment, maybe it's something I said or something I did, or a lifetime. I'm very intentional with my relationships. And if I could plant the seed, I would love that. I just want to have a lasting impact on somebody's life. That's it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I think that's so powerful in itself, because that just goes to show what allows you to live a fulfilling life is by serving and impacting others. And so I've heard people say it's not about, because our words are so powerful, it's not about what you say as a leader, but it's how you make people feel.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want people to say, you know what, that girl showed up. Yeah. She was there for me. She didn't quit on me. She was there for me. She helped me. She empowered me. Yeah. Whatever it is. And again, it could be something small. It could be something big, but that's the impact I want to leave.
Well, you're definitely living that. And I think that's what I love about you, Kristi. I think that's what about our community, our listeners love about you. And just keep showing it up. I'm not here to fill your ego,
Don't
your
fill my ego,
pride.
John.
When people tell me that all the time, I have to really humble myself. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm not awesome. You're awesome, And so I have to really, it's humility. It's really humbling ourselves. And,
Yeah.
and just challenging and holding each other accountable to higher standards. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So let me get to these membership questions.
Sure.
Micah Haroff, he asked, Kristi, how do you stay grounded and focused when everything around you feels uncertain or out of control?
That's very relatable. Honestly, I go back, I have no other answer other than Jesus. Anytime I feel like my world is shaken, or maybe there's something going on in a friendship or relationship or in business, whatever it is, that's the only thing I go back to. I get plugged into church. I get plugged into my prayer time. I get plugged into my Bible time. And then I get so mad at myself because I'm like, why are you not consistent with that?
Yes.
Why do you only go there when it's hard? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not perfect. I'm trying to be better at that.
Is that something you're struggling with on consistency?
Consistency, yeah. I feel like I talk to God every day, but my quality time, which is so crazy because I give my quality time to the people in my life.
Yes.
But I'm not a perfect Christian. And that's one area of my life where I'm like, dang. So these past couple of weeks when I was going through it, just supporting my friend, that's kind of when I realized, like, holy cow, like this is all you have at the end of life, right? This relationship matters more than any other relationship you have.
Amen.
And that would be my answer to Micah, is when the world gets a little shaky, you got to go to the one who made it. So
yeah, beautiful answer. And what's interesting is I struggle with the opposite of that. So every day I pray, devotion, scripture, and I write in my gratitude journal. And I find myself all the time thanking God for what he's done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But when times are tough, that's where I struggle to go to him.
That's interesting.
Yes, in those moments. And, my story, I wasn't raised in church, and, I've never read the Bible. And this was I've been on the spiritual journey for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been taught, Kristi, to suck it up, buttercup, no excuses, figure it out on your own. Well, that's what we're against, right? That's isolation. And I've really had to work on it when times are tough, when I'm struggling, because I used to think it was a sign of weakness. But let me be clear. It is not a sign of weakness to reach out for help. It is not a sign of weakness. And I keep telling myself, killing the old version of myself, that no, you can ask God for help in these tough times and be vulnerable. It feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I have to get comfortable getting uncomfortable.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's a work in progress.
Right. I get that.
Second and final question from Cody Schneider. By the way, shout out to Cody. A dude just continuously levels up. He speaks highly every time me and Cody are in the same room. He's always speaking highly of you, Kristi.
Oh,
by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I know you're an inspiration to all of us leaders. His question is, when you were at your lowest point, whether facing a business setback, personal doubt, or a leadership challenge, what was the unfiltered truth you told yourself to keep going? And how did that internal dialogue shape the leader you are today?
So I think for me, earlier on in the business, some of the things that I made mistakes on was who I brought on. I was kind of in this mode of desperation, like I just need the help, so just hire anybody. If they've recruited before, hire them. Who cares? And but for me, when it didn't work out, I really had to just slow it down a little bit, right? And say, hey, Kristi, this matters. Who you let in.
Yes.
Okay. One person can be a cancer to the organization. You have to be very intentional. That word's been brought up today a lot. You have to be intentional with who you hire.
Yes.
I didn't do my part as a leader of what I now preach today, which is finding out all of those whys and answers early on.
Yeah, that's right.
I was in this mode of desperation. So I guess for me, that was an early setback that I learned early on. And now I'm more of higher attitude, trained skill set. Yes. And for me, I felt like a failure when I had to let them go, but that was only short-lived.
Yep.
And afterwards, I felt better as a leader because I was having to make tough decisions that felt uncomfortable. And so when you're in those moments where you're like, shoot, I messed up, you take ownership of that and you move on.
That's right.
But I guess the unfiltered truth is I'm not a perfect leader. I'm not a perfect person. I'm going to make mistakes. And if I'm transparent about that, then that makes me authentic. So that was, I guess, the answer for Cody. But for anyone else, you have to let go of the ego and the pride. You are going to mess up. Entrepreneurship is scary. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
That's right. Yes.
So great question, Cody.
Beautiful. Great question and beautiful answer, Kristi. You thought about that one. That was definitely something I'm going to go back and listen to. I really appreciate you sharing that and diving deep on that and being vulnerable about that as well. So I know that's going to be nothing but impactful. Well, we're out of time, young lady.
Out of time. That was so quick.
I know. It's like we're sitting in a coffee shop having a good conversation. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here today. This was a round 2. For those that don't know, Kristi showed up again. So thankful, so grateful for her to be on the podcast. Last week, we had some internet interruptions, but we got it in today, got it taken care of. This is going to impact hundreds, thousands of individuals listening to this. So thank you for saying yes today, Kristi. And also, I want to acknowledge you for living boldly and leading with intention. You strike me as the leader that not only leads with intention, but you're authentic and you show up and are not afraid to be vulnerable and say to the world that you're not perfect. You know, if you would have told me to do that 2-3 years ago, I would have been trying to mask everything. And that to me is just miserable, but you show up, you're authentic. So I really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. How can our community at Level Up and Live, all of our listeners, audience, and viewers, how can we support you?
Sure. So if you guys want to get on the website, KOORecruit.com, KOO check us out there. And then if you have a hiring need, I treat your business how I treat my own. So if I'll hire them, then I'll send them to you. I'm not going to just throw up resumes and hope they stick. So if you have a hiring need, I'd love to connect with you. If you're a candidate looking for a new position, I'd love to see what we can do to help you out, get your resume in order. So you can find me on LinkedIn or our website and go from there. So thanks for asking.
Absolutely. And we didn't even get a chance to tap into recruiting and some of the insights.
I know, next time.
Yeah, we'll have to definitely do this again. So maybe not as long in between, but I know that's going to be super valuable for leaders and business owners as well to get your insight on that, your expertise. So, listeners, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you for listening all the way through. You're a true 1%er. If this episode fired you up, share it with a business owner you respect. Leave us a review, whether it's a 1-star, 5-star. Go in there. It takes 2 seconds. The reviews help us reach more people. And don't forget to subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you're craving a tribe of bold leaders like Kristi here, join us at the Level Up and Live Mastermind group here locally in Montgomery County, where real growth happens every single week. Let's go build a life we don't need a vacation from. Level Up and Live.